welcome to Night Callers Bigfoot Radio. It is January 19th, 2020, and you're here with both of your hosts tonight, Lauren Smith and Dustin Clark. How you doing tonight, Dustin?
I am doing awesome. How are you doing, Lauren?
Doing well. Our listeners get 2 shows in 1 week. How exciting is that?
Oh, lucky them.
Except Wednesday we won't have a show.
That'd be all right.
Yeah, it'll be all right. Oh, man. So how was your weekend?
My weekend wasn't too bad. I got a lot of work done around the house, and I had to print up some legal papers for this new business that I'm going to be working on, and then I had to watch my 1-year-old nephew today, and he was actually a pretty good little 1-year-old, so it was pretty easy.
Yeah.
So how was your weekend,
well,
Lauren?
Sounds good. It was good. It was good. I don't know if everybody's probably seen Facebook by now, but I did a solo camp out, like I mentioned on the last show. And so Saturday I left home and drove to my spot. I could see the water was already really going, and so I parked and hiked down to the creek where I'd normally cross to go to the spot I wanted to get to, and it was raging river, so there was no crossing that spot. So I hiked back to the car, loaded up my dog, and drove across the bridge to another spot and decided I was going to camp up on this ridge. And so JD and I got out of there, hiked up a ridge. Hold on a second. Hiked up a ridge, hiked up another ridge, just went way back in there. It was so wonderful. We were, just really enjoying it. It was great. I took lots of pictures. I, sat down on a rock to catch my breath because I'm out of shape. And I got way back in there, and I decided that I kind of wanted, since it was my first solo, I kind of wanted to camp back towards the car a little bit. So I backtracked back and found a good place behind these rocks. It was like on the second ridge up. And so I found a good place behind these rocks that was a windbreak, set up my camp, had dinner, got me a little fire going, just kind of looked around a little bit, waited for dark. And I, hadn't heard anything. And then darkness fell. And I could not keep the fire going because all the wood was wet. It's been raining here for days, and so I could not keep the fire going. And so finally I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go to bed. Well, I'm standing there right at my backpack, between my backpack and the tent, and I had my phone out. I was, trying to send texts and say, hey, heading to bed, so, if I don't answer, don't freak out, type of thing. And I didn't have hardly any signal, and something landed right next to me. And I don't know what it was, but there's not really any nut trees around there. So I looked down, and there's a stone. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, was that already there, or did that get thrown at me? So I'm just standing there kind of, like, when it hit, I looked down at it, and then I looked up at the tree above me because, I don't want to die by death from above. And I looked up at the tree above me, and there were, the wind wasn't blowing, the branches weren't moving, there was nothing up there, and I'm like, okay, so that's fine. Kind of hung out for a minute, seeing if anything else would happen, and nothing happened. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. Like, I'm cold, I'm just going to go lay down and listen. So I go get in bed with me and my dog, and we're snuggled up, we're warm, we're good. And then he would alert, so he silently, just like he'll poke his head up and just kind of, move around a little bit whenever he hears something. And so a couple times he alerted, and then a few minutes later I'd hear footsteps. And so there was something walking around camp, like around on the leaves and stuff. And I was like, okay, just listening, and it would go away. So, I didn't do anything about it. Oh, I set my recorder out before I went to bed, so I could pick up something. Anyway, so then he and I are snuggling, and then I kept hearing coyotes all night. Didn't really hear too much else out there. And then about 12 or 1 o'clock at night, I hear like a whoop or a howl. I'm not sure. It woke me out of a dead sleep, and I woke up and just heard this really loud. It didn't sound like a coyote at all. It was really weird. It was like, I don't know, a whale. It was creepy. Anyway, I heard that, and then the coyote started up right afterwards, and I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I'm laying there, and I'm all giddy, I'm like, yeah, I hope my recorder's still on. That's great, and I'm excited. It took me a little bit to go back to sleep after that. All in all, I was just really enjoying myself being out there alone. It was so great. Like, I was already planning the next solo. I was excited. And then go back to sleep, and I wake up to JD barking and just bark, 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 growl. And I'm like, okay, whoa, because he never barks. And right as he growls, I hear something run away from the camp. And I don't know, it's probably a raccoon or a bear or something like that, but whatever it was in camp when he barked at it and it ran away. So I got to listen to my audio and see if I can hear what that was, sniffing around. Anyway, so that was pretty exciting. I heard a couple tree knocks throughout the night, so I was like pretty excited about that. And then I go back to sleep, and then around 4 a.m. I wake up. I'm rudely awakened out of a deep sleep, and I hear what I thought was a gunshot. And I'd heard a truck pull in. I was, just kind of I heard a vehicle, but I thought it was coming down that road, and I was like, okay, it's kind of really like the middle of the night, but hopefully they won't bother me. Well, then I heard the gunshot, and so I started getting a little nervous. I was like, okay, idiots with guns. And then I hear a car horn, long and loud, like someone's laying on it. And then I hear 3 more gunshots. And then I heard, and so I'm laying there like, okay, let's just, I didn't know if there was a wreck. I didn't know what was going on. When I heard the initial gunshot, I thought, because what it sounded like was when a tree snaps and falls over, that's what it all sounded like. It sounded like a tree popping and then crashing to the ground. But that's not what it was, apparently. I found out later what it was. So that's what I heard. So I'm like, what is going on? Like I'm half asleep. Like I'm alert, but I'm still kind of like not thinking too clearly. And so I had the weirdest, like, situations going through my head. At first I was like, man, what if somebody wrecked into a tree and they're laying on the horn and that's what I heard? And then I hear the gunshot and I'm like, oh no, that's not what that was. Okay. And then I was like, man, what if, they're shooting at Bigfoot? I don't know. Like I was spinning out of control because I was half asleep. Anyway, so then I'm laying there and I'm trying to control my dog. He's not barking or anything, but he's lunging. He's trying to get out of the hammock so he can go look. And he's softly whining. I mean, very soft. And so I'm holding him and I'm squeezing him because he keeps lunging and moving. And I'm trying to be quiet. And then I hear what sounds like someone popping a tire, like flashing a tire. And at that moment I realized, oh my God, they're vandalizing my car, which is down the 2 ridges below me on the road. And I'm like, oh no, my car. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll just lay here and be real quiet. Maybe they'll finish with my car and they'll leave. And then at daybreak, I can go down and check my car and then hike up to the road and call my husband and let him know we're getting a new car because this one's totaled or whatever's going to happen. And so I'm laying there, and then I hear walking. So they're walking down in the brush down there. And that's when I really got scared, because I was terrified that they had, that they were done with the car and they were looking for the owner of the car to mess with. And so I got really scared at that time. And the whole time I was laying there trying to wait them out, just trying to wait until they, you know, went away and just left me alone. The whole time I was praying, just, please leave me alone. Please just, you know, do whatever to my car and then leave. Just leave me alone. Don't let them come up here. My camp was really well hidden behind the rocks. And so I wasn't worried about any bullets hitting me up there because I was inaccessible. But I was scared that they were going to hike up the ridge and find me. I was hard to find, but I was scared that they knew the ridge and that they would come find me. And anyway, so I got my phone, and I only had like 10 to 20% battery. And anyway, so I only had like 10 to 20% battery, and I had turned it off the rest of the night. And I had I powered it on under my sleeping bag because I didn't want any light to show, and I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the button. And I'm holding JD at the same time because I don't want him to try to get out and start shaking and rattling his tags and all kinds of, you know. And so the phone comes on, powers up finally. I have 3G, like it's 3G, 3 bars of 3G. And I'm like, oh, no, that's not going to send. Oh, no. So I shoot a text off to my friend DW. And I'm like, okay, so I think somebody's vandalizing my car. I've heard gunshots. I've heard a longhorn. I've heard a tire being punctured. I said, idiots at 4 a.m. with guns is not really a good thing ever. I said, I'm pretty freaking scared right now. I was like, can you do me a favor and call the sheriff's department and have them come out and look? I said, because I'm freaking out right now. And it took me a long time to send that, or not to send the text, but to get to that point. And I'd rather be a pain in the butt than be dead is what I decided. So sent the text, and immediately it's read. It shows a read receipt. And I'm like, oh, my God, it went through and he saw it. And I'm like so happy. And he texts back, and he's like, okay. He said, I got a hold of the sheriff's department, and he's like, I'm on my way too. Well, I know that he's about 30 minutes away, and the sheriff's department probably is too. And I'm like, man, this is about to be the longest 30 minutes of my life. So I put my boots, or I kind of leaned up and grabbed my boots and slid them onto my sleeping bag, and then just sat there with them. And I had my gun and my dog and everything. And he said, dispatch, finally got a hold of dispatch. They're going to call you. Well, they had called, but I didn't answer because I was too scared to talk. Like, I was too scared to make noise. Because if I can hear them walking around in the brush down there, they could probably hear me talking. So I didn't answer. I declined the call because, man, I ain't trying to let them know I'm up there. And anyway, so I tell him that, and I'm ready. Like, if I hear footsteps or lights bobbing towards my encampment, I was ready to put my shoes on, grab my dog, slip away behind some rocks, and, you know, defend myself. But I wasn't going to be a sitting duck in that camp. I was terrified. Anyway, so I'm laying there just like convulsing. I was shaking so hard. I cannot think of another time I've been that scared in my life. I was so scared. And I hear some vehicles come in, and I didn't hear anything else out of them. Like, all was quiet. My dog started snoring. He was fine. And it all calmed down. I never heard them leave. And then I hear some vehicles pull in, and he texts me, and he said, hey, the deputies are there. They need you to come down. So I grabbed JD, grabbed my gun, grabbed my recorder, and then turn on my headlamp and start hiking down. I held my dog the whole way because I was scared he was going to run up and they were going to shoot him or something. I don't know. And anyway, so I hiked down, and they had the lights on, and I guess they had told him, you stay up here on the road. And he's like, well, she's my friend. And he said, unless y'all turn your lights on, she ain't going to come out because she doesn't know it's y'all. And so they turned their lights on for me. And so they pulled up closer to where I was coming out of the woods, and they said, well, a car was vandalized. You were right, but it wasn't your car. Somebody set a car on fire over here, and it's burning pretty good. And And so I was like, okay. And he said, what did you hear? And I said, well, I heard gunshots. I said, I heard a horn. I heard what I thought was a tire being slashed. I said, I got it all on audio. And and the other guy looked at me and said, you got it on video? And I was like, no, audio. And he just kind of looked at me weird, like, why? And I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm a Bigfoot researcher. You know, I was like, just kind of looked away. I was like, and I have a gun. I said, so, you know, I was ready to defend myself, but I really wanted y'all out here to, you know, see if y'all could catch them or whatever. I said, because I didn't know if they were gone or not. And they're like, that's fine, you know, just you run your own risk when you park out here. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Anyway, so they loaded up and left. They didn't, you know, they didn't stay very long. They loaded up and left. And I don't know if they, you know, looked in the car to see if there was anything in the car, anybody in the car. I don't know. Anyway, so then DW came down there, and I told him, I said, you know, one day I'm going to not be a pain in the ass. I said, but today is not that day. And he's like, oh, it's fine. He said, I'm just really glad that you're okay. Your car's okay. He's like, I'm really sorry all this happened. I was like, well, it's not your fault. I said, you know, I was out here. I said, of course this happens to me. So he said he wanted to stay till daybreak just before I went back up to camp just to make sure everything was okay. And so we sat and I actually pulled out my recorder and found the spot and played it for him. And you can hear all of it. And I mean, I don't know. So after listening to it, after I've calmed down a little bit and letting others listen to it, I think maybe that the initial shot that I heard was either a gunshot or the glass breaking from the fire. And then the other shots are either gunshots or there was ammo rolling around in the truck and it, you know, they exploded. But I don't know, it was terrifying. But what's interesting was whenever the initial pop happened that I thought was the first gunshot, I heard scrambling through the woods coming towards me. And I don't know if that was the you know, degens scrambling back from the explosion or if there was something watching them that took off running, like wildlife or something. Anyway, so that was my weekend. And so I, you know, DW left. And so I went and got in my car and locked the doors and turned on the heater. And I was just hanging out for a little bit longer for it to get a little bit lighter. And I fell asleep for an hour with my dog curled up in the corner of my back seat. It was pretty pitiful. And then hiked up, broke camp, and came back down. Drove by the car, took some pictures. They're on my Facebook. It was, you know, but other than that, it was a great weekend. Like, it was beautiful and serene and peaceful. I had the best time. I really did. I was already planning my other adventures. I was so excited. All the wildlife stuff that happened, you know, I was excited about it. I wasn't really scared, but the humans came and ruined it for me. Like, humans are terrifying. But anyway, I'm excited to listen to the audio, see what I got on there. And I don't know. I kind of decided I'm probably not going to go back out solo for a while. Keep doing the buddy system, because that was an awful feeling, laying there in my hammock just shaking, you know, because I just didn't know what they were going to do. People are so unpredictable and terrifying. And, you know, whether it was glass exploding or whatever, it sounded like bullets, and that scared the crap out of me because, you know, idiots with guns are never a good thing. And, yeah, it was pretty scary. Probably could have gone my whole life without that happening. Anyway, Dustin's theory is that there was a body in there, and they were burning the body to disguise the evidence, and
what?
The person fled on foot seeking a new identity.
That is not what I said. I said there's a possibility. No, I said, what if the person that did it committed a homicide?
Nope.
What if the person committed a homicide and then drove out there, burnt the car down, and just went trekking through the woods just to
Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Well,
That's way worse than my
You never
hearing.
heard them You never heard them leave.
I really didn't. I didn't hear them leave. I think they parked up on the road, and after they were done burning the car, they walked up the road and hopped. I think they must have had a Prius or something because it was just quiet. I didn't really hear them leave. But anyway, so I get home. I told my husband about it. He was pretty chill about it, because I'm fine, so why freak out? Anyway, so we were making dinner. I just got to tell this funny thing, and then we're going to bring on our guests. But we were making dinner, and he had microwaved some rice. And he pulls out the Tupperware container, puts the lid back on it, and goes to shake it up. And the lid, when steam, it pops the lid off. And when it popped, I ducked and covered. And he looked at me, and he goes, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm sorry, I have PTSD." I'm like, "I thought I was being shot at." Oh, my gosh. He starts, I am just cracking up at this point because it was a natural reflex. My heart was beating all fast, and I was freaking out. Yeah, it was, anyway, so it's probably going to be with me for a while. That feeling, even listening to the audio, I could just feel that, I could feel that feeling, but anyway, I'm excited to go back and listen to my audio before all that happened and see what I can get off of those footsteps and that vocal and the tree knocks that I heard. So I'm pretty excited about that, and I'll report back. I'll put it on the Night Colors page once I get it all sorted out.
Sweet.
Okay. Anyway, so we're going to bring our guest on. So our guest is Shelly Alston. She's an Arkansas researcher. She's part of the SBA. She's a really great lady. I've had a chance to research with her. She's very, very thorough, and she's had a pretty exciting history. So I can't wait to bring her on. Hold on just a second. All right. Shelly, is that you? Hold on. Yep. Shelly, is that you?
I'm here.
Hi,
hey,
Shelly. How are you doing?
I'm good, Lauren. How are you?
Doing great. Really glad to have you on tonight.
Well, I'm great to be on. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. We are so excited to start talking about all the stuff that you listed in your bio. I guess I hadn't heard some of this from Dustin, and so it was news to me, and I'm excited to cover it. So so thank you again for coming on. And I didn't know if you wanted to talk about the festival that's happening in Mena before you go into your stuff.
Oh, yeah. In the last weekend of September, we're going to be having the Ouachita Bigfoot Festival and Conference, and I'm really excited about that. I worked in trade shows, conventions, fairs, a lot of college football, lots of sports, and did some stuff with ESPN. Did that for about 17 years, and people say, hey, you need to put on a Bigfoot festival. And so I've been saying that for about, 5 or 6 years. And so finally it's like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. Enough people have told me, said, you need to do this. So so we're going to plan it. Of course, and there's 2 other conferences and festivals that'll be, shortly after. I think there's one in Honobia, Oklahoma. That's a big one. And that's about an hour or so, hour and a half from here. And then shortly after that one, there's the Texas conference. So it's like a whole season of Bigfoot conferences. And I'm excited that we get to be a part of that. But we're going to have, vendors, camping on site with nighttime storytelling. We'll have, a guest each night. And then members of the public, the camping groups can get up and talk about their experiences. Then we'll have conferences during the day with some speakers, and I don't have everything confirmed on that, but there's going to be some really good names there that we all know. Of course, all the vendors, games, stuff for kids. We're going to be taking groups out in the woods, showing them some actual Bigfoot activity with different signs that they leave behind. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. Very excited to I'm definitely planning on going, and I'm excited to promote that for you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, come on up. We'd love to have you.
And once it gets a little closer to the time and you have all the speakers and everything that you're ready to advertise everything, you can come back on the show and we can do a little advertisement for you on the show.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, thank you. Appreciate that very much.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. All righty, so let's get started. So I know your land has been in your family for quite a long time.
Yeah, 1897.
1897?
Mm-hmm.
Whew.
Yeah.
Who is the first person to see something out there?
Reportedly, anybody that talked about it was me.
Mm-hmm.
My grandpa, he was never to talk about such things. If he saw it, all day long, he wasn't going to come home and talk about it. That's just not something he did. He's, pretty quiet guy. It was when I was 11 years old. I had walked down the driveway. Our driveway's about a quarter of a mile long. There was a culvert that runs under the road, and the day before, the dogs had chased a rabbit into this culvert. And so the next day, I'm going to see if the rabbit's still there, like it's still there, right? As I bent over to look into this culvert, I heard like a limb crashing to the ground, breaking off a tree and crashing. I looked up, and about 100 yards away, maybe, there at the edge of the tree line, it was a Bigfoot. And, what's a bear? I know what bears look like. I've been to zoos, seen them on TV, seen them in books. Some friends had a bear. I know what bears look like. But it was about 8 feet tall, maybe more than that, no more than 9. And it was standing there. Its body was facing me. And the left hand was reaching up where it had just broken this limb off the tree, so where the limb was on the tree. And it was looking at its hand, so its head was turned sideways. It had a flat face, not a snout like a bear. Its body was more proportionate to human, even than ape. When bears or apes, stand up there with like really short legs. And so this had more proportionate to human, but still little towards the ape proportion with the length of the legs, and the arms were a lot longer than what humans would have been. It was really dark brown to black. I didn't stay around and examine anything else. I turned around and ran to the house as fast as I could. I don't know if I yelled out or not. I know when I got to the yard, I was yelling, Bigfoot, it's a Bigfoot, it's a Bigfoot. And by this time, I looked back and everybody's coming out of the house and it's gone. And I'm sure it heard me yelling like, oh crap, the kid has seen me, everybody's going to come out. But I never saw it again after that. And I went all over this farm where there was 350 acres, 400 acres, something like that. And it's about a mile from one end of the property to the other. I'd go over by the creek, and nobody knew where I was. I'd just take off and leave the house and tell them where I was. But it's like Bigfoot Central over there. I'd climb up on the bluff, by the creek, woods, wherever. Nobody knew where I was, and I'm sure I made a lot of noise running quickly through the leaves and climbing the hills and stuff. But I don't think I was ever still enough to ever hear it move through the woods, to hear anything.
Right.
I wish I had that much energy today. But I did see stuff, little logs that had been moved. I noticed that, or stuff broken and bent over. And then I became a teenager. I was more interested in cruising Main Street, going to the mall, that sort of thing. So going out in the woods and seeing Bigfoot, that wasn't going to happen at the mall.
Yeah.
Then later after high school, I'll get married, move away. I was moved away for 18 years. But the year before I moved back home, this was my next experience. It's in 2007, and I was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time. A lot of city lights. You can't see the stars. So when I came back, of course, there's no light pollution. When I got to the end of the driveway up by the mailbox, I stopped the van, and I had a Chrysler minivan. I was a soccer mom, you know. But there's these tall weeds that I stopped it by, and they were I think they're called goldenrods, but these are about 8 or 9 feet, and they were so tall they were kind of drooped over. So between the trunk of those weeds and my van is like a tunnel. That a 5'8" person could walk under and not touch any, of the plant or the van whatsoever. It was just large. They were huge. So I got the window partially down, and I'm looking up at the stars. I'm just like, my God, this is beautiful. Beautiful. I haven't seen these in years. And I've got the engine off and stuff. And so while I'm there looking, I hear something walking, and it is coming up behind my van on the side next to those weeds, and it's hitting the weeds. I know it's big. I know it's not a dog. I didn't stay around to see what it was. I quickly leaned over to the right away from the window, which was about halfway down, started the van, put it in drive, and hauled butt up the road, then turned my headlights on. And I knew it was Bigfoot. I mean, who's going to be there? Because there's no other houses around. Then I went on to town, to run my errand, and then came back. I didn't see anything. I didn't get out to look for tracks or anything like that. I was still a little shaken up. Then I'm trying to think when. I guess the next sighting would have been a few years later, but the next year I moved back, and there was stuff moved around, like a flower pots would be moved, or these mineral tubs, or sometimes they'd be gone. It's not like things of value that people would be, coming along and stealing. These things, they're just gone. It's like, where did these go? Or, maybe we'd find them, another part of the property. It's like, that's strange. We did have a dog that would go off hunting, a walker hound. She would, chase deer, coyote, what have you. Something scared the heck out of her, and she did not want to leave the house. She would not leave the house without us with her. One time we drove over to the north part of the property, and then we're in the pickup, and then as we're coming back, she didn't notice that we were leaving. All of a sudden she turns around, oh, my God, they're gone, So she comes running as fast as she can. She's looking over her left shoulder and right shoulder, and, and then keeps looking back, to make sure there's nothing after her. And at that time, I'm like, well, I guess she's seen Bigfoot. It scared the heck out of her. She doesn't want to go over there anymore. Let's see, the next time, when I saw, it was Gregory, my son, and that was in 2013, I believe. We had a major flood. I mean, historic proportions. There were people that had drowned in this flood. I believe we got 11 inches of rain. We had driven over to the North 40 in Dustin. That's where you camped. That creek there.
Yeah.
And there was water everywhere. I mean, you couldn't have made it to where you were camping. There was just so much water. The creek. Was coming through part of the property as well as the main pathway. About 2 days after that flood, we had driven over to the North 40, just kind of looked to see what the water's doing. And as we came back, I stopped the car. I was going to check the pond levee, make sure it wasn't washing away. And it's very loud with all the water rushing. The windows are up in the car. And then I happened to look back, and my son, he's about 12 at the time. He's just waving his arms like crazy, trying to get my attention. And then he finally gets my attention. He's, pointing up in the woods, and I'm thinking, I'm looking up in the sky, plane, weird bird. I'm not looking in the woods. I look around the bend. And I get in, I'm like, what is it? What? He's like, it's big, it's hairy, it's pulling a bunch of dead deer behind it. I'm like, oh crap, it's Bigfoot. And so I jumped in the car, started up, drove up a further past where he saw it, and then I jumped up out of the car, and I'm running up the side of this hill as fast as I've ever run up this hill. I don't know what the hell happened to me since then that I can barely move, but I was going to cut it off. I wasn't scared. I was like, well, heck, man, I'm going to go catch his butt, and I want to see this. And then I get up there, and there's a bunch of briar thicket, and I can't go any further. So I came back down. We went to the house, and he's just telling me what he saw, and he said the deer were tied end to end, so you have like nose to butt kind of thing. So you have like 5 or 6 lengths of deer behind one another, and I guess maybe they were easy to catch with the floodwaters. I don't know, because as fast as these things run, I'm sure they can easily catch a deer. And so I believe it's the next day I had left my phone at home to charge up. It was dead, and so I was going to go to town with my dad. Before we went to town, we drove up to the north checking cattle and stuff, and as we come back, I asked my dad, I go, stop here. I want to go up in these woods and look at where he saw this thing. And I went up there, and there's the drag marks where all the deer were dragged through the woods. There were footprints, partial footprints. There was one perfect footprint, and it was 13 inches long. It was just perfect, and I wish I'd had plaster. I went around town trying to find plaster, and I should have thought, well, I could use grout. Grout would have worked. After that, I called a big local researcher. It took him a few days to come out. He looked around. I think that it rained again, so the footprint had washed away, and all the leaves, the drag marks and everything, it was just kind of all, the rain just flattened everything. He was out there for about an hour. He mentioned something about, going to come out maybe later in the fall, maybe camp out, bring a couple more people. None of that ever happened. Did have another friend, local guy who does a lot of research. He goes over into Oklahoma a lot. He's been out twice. One time he bought that parabolic microphone. We went out there, and you could hear something walking out in the woods, 2-footed. Another time he bought the FLIR, and that was pretty cool. I suggest everyone get one of those. That's on my Christmas list this past Christmas. I didn't get it. Got the birthday's coming up. Maybe I'll hit the lottery here. But one really neat thing was, I was out metal detecting. Now, if anybody knows my family history, I come from a bunch of outlaws. I mean, my great-grandma helped her brothers rob banks and stagecoaches and trains. So I'm out looking for all this gold and, KGC gold. And I found, treasure signs and symbols and stuff, but, somebody's already dug up all the stuff. But, hey, I was out there metal detecting. But I had to go across the cattle guard and take that road all the way up to North 40. And this metal detector, it's just beep, all this beeping all the time. And I don't think Bigfoot liked that. Now, if you start on the road to go, through the pasture, there's an old trough that was to the left side of the road. It was just like one of those black plastic troughs, feed trough. And the frame was messed up, and it actually sat there for probably 2 years. But it had been moved across the road, partially, like halfway across the road. I thought, that's strange. I asked my dad, hey, did you move this? We haven't had any storms, no wind or anything. And he said, no. And so I put it back. The next morning, now it's all the way across the road. I get out, I move it, I go up north, I metal detect more. 2 or 3 nights later, now it's moved just a little bit further, and now it's almost, on the other side of the road. So it's now, it's blocking it, still, but I put it back, and Still, again, no windstorms, nothing like that. So all I need to say is Bigfoot didn't like me up there with that metal detector. We've had dogs. We've got, all kinds. I think we're 8 dogs right now, but, they'll bark and let you know when there's an intruder. They've got different barks. There's, where they bark if they're chasing a rabbit, or a coyote or a deer. It's like you can tell what they're chasing by the way they bark. And then when they bark at an intruder, whether it be, so maybe, I don't know, somebody wanting to burglarize a place or a Bigfoot. Those are pretty much the same kind of bark. So, it's an intruder. And if it's Bigfoot, they're scared of it. They won't go near it. They'll go out towards the direction, and if it comes closer, they're backing up closer. We've had, several instances of that. One night I was coming home, and I came down the driveway, and just as I popped over the hill, there was one standing in the road. And this is a lighter colored one, and it just quickly went the road that goes across the cattle garden, went that way. And it wasn't very big. This one may have been 6 feet tall at most.
And you say lighter color like just a lighter brown, kind of like a tannish, or?
Like a tannish, tan.
Okay.
Yeah. There was one night, I think it was in September 2015. I was coming home, and before you get to our driveway, you're driving north, and you're going to be coming to a T in the road. I had the window down. It's been dark for probably about an hour. I heard this hooping and hollering. And I thought, wow, somebody's really partying it up at the old shell pit. It's just, it used to be a huge mountain of shale. Now it's just kind of a small, not a deep pit, but, it's right there by the creek. But as I got a little further down the road, I realized I've already passed this noise. Oh my God, it's a Bigfoot. And it was I can't duplicate that sound, but there is a YouTube video that I actually ran across on the SBA Facebook page that has a sound the sound's just like this. And it would make this sound very repetitive, like about 7 or 8 times. And then it would switch to this other sound and do it 7 or 8 times. And then it would go back to the original sound, and then, back and forth. It did this for about 4 minutes. And once I got to the top of that T in the road, there's my mailbox. And I kind of turned the car to the right. I texted a local researcher, didn't get anything back, but I called my mom. I'm like, man, this is crazy. He's out there hooping and hollering. This has got to be Bigfoot. It's loud. It's coming from something big. This is not any kind of owl. I've heard owls. I've heard screech owls, barn owls, hoot owls. I know what those sound like, and they don't sound like this. This is not a coyote. We've had coyotes around here for years. I know what those sound like. This is something I had never heard of before, and I could not duplicate it. And so while I'm there talking to my mom, something kind of bumps the car. The engine's turned off. My window's down all the way. And it's a little car. It's a Chrysler Crossfire. It's 2007. But something bumped the car. I didn't pay that much mind. I'm, used to be in my car, like had dogs or something will kind of rub up against the car, or a person just kind of lean up against it and it shakes. That's what it was like. But while I'm on there, anyway, but by that time that sound had quit. And so like maybe 4 minutes after that sound quit, had the car bumped. And then all of a sudden there's woods and, real thick, thicket-type woods to my left. Something comes charging through these trees and brush, and then there's like 10 feet of weeds. They've went through the brush, now they're through the weeds. It is coming at me, and I'm still holding the phone. And just like when I was in the van and something was walking up beside the van, I leaned far as I could away from the window, and I'm freaking out over the phone. My mom, hears me. She's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Oh, my God, oh, my God." I started the car up, put it in drive, and I take off. And then I turned the lights on. I'm like, oh, my God, it almost got me. It may have reached in and touched my hair, but I know it had to have gotten within a foot of me. And my heart's pounding. That was just, you have something charging at you. I mean, whatever it was massive. I went to the house and went inside, locked the doors. So that was pretty, I think, the most intense moment I've ever had with a Sasquatch. There's one other instance where I was metal detecting up at the North 40. It's over close to the creek, very close, right across this little branch from where you were, where you were camping. I was metal detecting at this higher point than usual, and 4 dogs were with me: the Bloodhound Beagle mix, and then the Leroy, the little Pit Lab mix. I don't know what he is. He's just a little bit of everything, and my Shih Tzu Neon. All of a sudden, one of the hounds sees something, and then the other dogs, they see it and they take off like intruder, not like coyote, not like a deer, anything like that. As they're taking off, I go up the side of this ridge so I can get a higher elevation so I can see what it is they're after. Eventually, they stop barking at whatever it was. They've chased it off. So they start, coming back, and then I see it cross the north field of where I'm at, just north of where I'm at, running, and it's like a gliding. It wasn't like bumbling or anything like, you would think. It was almost gliding as it ran. And it was running towards the creek. And it was very dark, and it was very tall. Height on it, I would say 10 feet tall. I don't think it was 11 feet. I think 10. It was very dark in color. I wish if I had a GoPro strapped to my head, I would have caught it. That was pretty cool, and that was back in 2017 or 2018, one of the two. 2018. It was 2018.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh.
I was going to say, yeah, you have a lot going on down there.
Yeah. In July of 2018, had a company out of Trinity, Texas, that came up to install the zip lines. We have a zip line attraction here. So zip lines are going to be going back and forth across this little canyon. They were working on the south side of the canyon, and I was working out in the garden, and I had another guy that was working for me. He was working up close to the house, helping to clear out and trim some stuff that came up in the fence line. I heard like tree knocks, and at first I thought it was them doing some hammering on one of the platforms on that side of the road. I'm like, well, why are they over there? They're still over there working. But this was coming from further up the ridge, about another 100 feet away from where they would have been. And it knocked about 8 or 9 times. And then that was all together. It knocked about 3 or 4 times, and it paused, and then about another 4 times. And later I asked them, if they were working across the road. And they said, no, we haven't been over there yet. We'll probably get up to that tomorrow. I'm like, well, I heard some knocking over there. I'm like, well, we thought that was your guy. I'm like, no, it wasn't. He was down by the house. So I guess, I don't know what Bigfoot was trying to communicate with the tree knocks. I guess he didn't like the construction going on, because they had a whole lift and everything out there. And they were out there for about 3 weeks with heavy equipment. I'm trying. And there's been so much stuff. I don't know what all I've told you about, but it's just a regular thing around here.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to tell you about the box of wine.
I was about to ask you about that.
Yeah. Pardon me, let me get a sip of water.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a workshop, and I was teaching on how to build with cob, which is like a sand and clay and straw mixture, similar to adobe, and had campers here overnight, the first night, and then it started raining later the second night. So there's just me and a friend of mine that was in from out of town. He was in for about a month, and he was helping me with the cob workshop. And had one guest that stayed the night, so he slept in his car due to all the rain. But at the end of the night, we had a little fire built and had a box of wine. I think everybody had a glass. So I left everything out underneath the canopy that we had. In this chair, I had set the box of wine and then a 12-pack of Dr. Pepper that was up on its end. The next morning, I went out, and the guest is still asleep in the car. That box of wine had been moved about 45 feet or so from the canopy, like towards the woods, away from everything. But it was sitting upright. There was no teeth marks on it like an animal or anything had grabbed it and drug it. It was just picked up out of that chair, and the Dr. Pepper was still up on its end, and it had just been moved and then just set down. But there were no tracks. Even though it rained, there were no tracks, because that ground there was pretty hard. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, didn't you have a family member had a bachelor party camp out and they got ran out of there?
No, I don't. No, I can't remember if I told you that or not. I can't think of what that was.
Oh, it must have been something Shane and it might have got wires crossed. So, all right, go ahead.
Oh gosh, let me look at here. There was one night my dad saw it, it was a daytime, on this one tall, it's like a rounded ridge that comes out, out the side of the ridge. It's really pretty steep, and we had recently had part of the trees and brush cleared off the side of this ridge, and it came around from the north side, towards our house, and then walked on around to the south and then back to the west side. That was his last sighting. He said he's seen some other things over the years, but wasn't sure, for sure what it was that he saw. After my son had seen it, after that flood, about a month or so later, I was looking out the kitchen window, and there was a lighter colored one. But it looked, with the sun shining on it, it was like a red, and it was probably 8 or 9 feet tall. And it was just walking along the tree line, just strolling through there, and it just turned and went into the woods. So I saw it for about probably 30 feet of it walking. So I saw it walk about 30 feet and then just turn into the woods.
Man. So what do you think they are? Oh.
What do I think they are?
Yeah, like animal, paranormal. What do you think Sasquatch is?
You know what? I've heard a lot of stories. And it can go any way. But right now, the evidence that I have seen, that it's an animal that's really good at hiding, and they're very smart. They're very, very intelligent. I've heard people say that they're aliens. They may have portals that, that's why nobody can find them, because they have portals. or they're magical beings and that they can cloak themselves.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard a lot of stuff. But, you know, they're very, very good at hiding. For instance, there was one time I stopped up by the mailbox, and it had rained a couple of days before, and I hadn't looked for fossils in a while. So I was looking for these fossils, and as I'm out there, I hear somebody talking out in the woods. But I cannot make out what they're saying. And I'm only hearing one, you know, like one person's one part of the conversation. I don't hear anybody else. And I'm like, well, somebody's out there, but I'm not hearing another person talk. So I continued looking for fossils, and I was out there for about, I don't know, 8-10 minutes. And I got in the pickup and was going on to the house. And just as I started going, there's some tall Japanese privet and pretty thick. As I drive by them, I hear the ground move, like somebody trying to jump and hide, you know, like shuffling through the leaves and stuff. I look, and I don't see anything, but now that's kind of thick there, and so in fact, I looked at it today, and I do on a regular basis now. I look behind there to see if anything's hiding. So, you know, they can hide very well. There's one instance where I got it on a picture. I got one on a photo of it, and I was metal detecting again, and I'd went on the other side of this ridge down into this bottomland that's right next to a creek, and my dogs, my Shih Tzus there with me, had Leroy the pit mix, and then a few of the hounds. I think there were 4 hounds. They were chasing deer back and forth on the other side of the creek, and then to my north on my side of the creek. When they went down to the south, just south of me on my side of the creek, they stopped. Something broke up their race. They came back to me, and the little bloodhound, she came to me, and she's all whiny, like something's wrong. And she's looking that way, like, oh my gosh, it's down there, you know, Mama, oh my gosh, you know, just she was really upset, and she just kept on whining to me about it. And I called or I texted, I can't remember, Udell Head, the researcher that goes over into Oklahoma, and I said, hey, this is, you know, something broke up their race. They're looking this way. There's something just to the south of me. And he says, well, you know, go running down through there as fast as you can, then suddenly stop and listen. And if it's close by, it's probably going to be moving away. And I'm like, okay, well, it's all briary. There's vines. You cannot run. You can kind of step gingerly over all this stuff. But so I walked about 150 feet or so, and I took some pictures. And then it wasn't until the next day I was looking at those pictures. And there on the right side of one, there's a cluster of vines. If you zoom in, you'll see there's something, it's about 3 feet tall, is crouched down. Zoom in, you can see 2 eyes, and they're like a brown eye, like an ape's eye would be, is what they look like. On the left side of that, you can see where its hand is reaching around a small tree, so you can see all 4 fingers, and you know all the bones, the way the light's shining on everything. It's just perfect. So, and you could smell it. Oh, it smelled horrible. It smells like a mixture of like chemical and skunk and really horrible BO. You know, I don't know anybody that smells that bad except for this lady that lives a couple miles from here. Sorry, just had to throw that in.
Are you talking about the witch?
No, that's, the witch. Now, that's worse than Bigfoot as well. Yeah, we've got, what Dustin is referring to, there is a family that lives close, you know, just north of us. This lady claims to be a witch, and I don't think they have running water. They don't have soap, that's for sure. Anyway, but yeah, it's a little little story. If anybody ever comes here searching for Bigfoot, I'll take them up there, and we can see where they live. We can look across the property line there, and bring your crosses.
So, Shelly, why do you think that Bigfoot are on your property? Do you think they're they stay around there close, or do you think they just pass through every now and then?
It seems like they're here on a regular basis almost. Like year round. It's not like they're just here like in the fall. You can see evidence in the spring, summer, fall, winter, very early spring. It's like they're always here. Now I don't know if they have, live 5 miles from here and then pass through here once a week. I don't know. I have, somebody mentioned about, they protect the Indian burial site that is up on top of this ridge, because that's still never been inhabited by anyone. And there's, I think it's about probably 25 or 30 acres there that no one has ever, lived. No houses and no buildings on that property whatsoever. That could be something. I don't know. Some kind of, other religion. They're protecting the Indians' graveyards. I don't know. But on this graveyard on top of this ridge, the Indian chiefs and medicine men, that's the important people in the tribe, were buried traditionally on top of a ridge. And so we have several graves up there. There may be 100 graves. There could be 300. I'm not sure. So I don't know. I mean, there's north of here, about a mile from here, is Iron Fork Lake. People have been fishing out on that lake, and from the south shore of that lake, which is just all national forest land, something has been on the banks throwing rocks at people while they're out there in their boats. The Bigfoot investigator that came out here after we saw the footprint and the one dragging the deer through the woods, he stated that there's a family, like a teenager Bigfoot, and then the mom and dad. Teenager, I don't know. I don't know how big teenagers are on the Bigfoot scale. Talk about footprints and the young ones. There was one morning, it was when we were, it was about 2 years before, so it was 18, 17, 2016. It had rained about 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. I'd walked up the road, again looking for fossils since it had rained, and there was a footprint about 6 inches long, a barefoot foot, like a barefoot. I thought, why has a kid been out here walking in the road? And it looked like it'd been there a while, but after the rain, so like say 4 o'clock in the morning, why would a child be walking out the road at 4 o'clock in the morning by themselves? There were no other footprints, barefoot or with a shoe on, nothing. But it was a little bit wider than, like you say, you look like a standard child's foot. It's a little bit different. It's a little bit wider than what a human child's foot would look like.
One of the listeners wants to know if you've seen any orbs around that cemetery or up on the ridge. Orbs or strange lights up there. There is a light in the North 40 has about 20 acres of pasture, and then to the east side of it is about 20 acres of wooded land. And then there's like a lowland, and then the hill that's behind my house, and then my house. So as we're up on the hill behind the house, and you're looking down into the North 40, there's a light. Looks like it's right out in the middle of the wooded part.
You go out there, you drive out, you cannot find a light if you go out there. It's like it's gone. Nothing there. And we've seen that at least 3 times. But it looks almost like you would think maybe a house light, light outside somebody's house, or LED type lantern. It's a white light. It's not like amber colored or red. It's just this light out in the middle of the woods, and we can't explain it. We go down there looking for it, but we can't find it when we get down there.
Yeah, I know. Like when we were down there camping, and I don't believe you came out with us that night, but we told you about it the next morning. From where we were camped, the creek was a good 60 to 80 yards roughly, and through the woods we could see a little pin light way off in the distance, and we walked all the way to the creek, and it was still a ways from us, but once we got over to the creek, there was 3 little lights that looked like they were just in the middle of the woods. And we ended up, this was like 2 o'clock in the morning, we jumped in the truck, and we went all the way to the next mile section, and there was a house up there with a big barn, and on the back of the barn had a LED light, but to me, it didn't seem like that was what we were seeing. And we went and looked during the day, and you couldn't really tell. So,
yeah, where you pointed, you showed me that, and that's very thick woods there. If there's any houses, across from that property and then over on that other road, you wouldn't be able to see that. So that was really a, unique situation there. Then the next day, we walked up the creek and we saw that barn and thought it might have been a light reflecting, but that barn was actually too far away. It was further north about it. That was probably at least another 100 yards from there, so it wouldn't have been that.
Right. Okay. Lori wants to know, have you ever heard stories of Bigfoot being over 12 foot in your area?
No, I've heard of 11 foot just over across the state line, which is probably about 30 miles from here.
Okay.
Red. I think that's a red colored Bigfoot.
Has there been any UFO sightings in your area?
A tremendous amount. Strange lights. In just north of us, we've got a hollow, we call Posey Hollow, and it goes in between these mountains, and it starts, from the west, just not too far north of here, like a mile and a half, 2 miles from where I'm at, and goes on east. And I think it continues for, maybe 20 miles. You drive through there before you finally come out to it's a county road. It goes through national forest. Beautiful, beautiful land. And I think it's at least 20 miles to drive where you come out on Highway 270. You're out in the middle of nowhere. There's no houses. The first part of Posey Hollow, maybe 4 miles, there are a few houses up through there. Nothing after that. It's all national forest. And there's a place up there where you can dig and you can find like little Herkimer crystals. Herkimer, they get their name from Herkimer, New York. A lot of crystals up there. They're double pointed, and I can't. Yeah, you can Google it. I can't really explain it. I'm not a crystal expert, but people have seen some strange things, and these are really sane people. They're not people that are creating these crazy stories. For instance, one friend of mine, he actually lives closer to town. He said it looked like a missile. It shot up and went just till it was out of sight. Me and one of my friends, we were out northern part of the property. We're up kind of up elevated, and we saw something rise up, a light, and this would have been in Posey Hollow where this happened. It rose up and it got really bright. It started to move and then just disappeared. It was just gone. We've had people see some strange lights just kind of darting here and there, but different colors. There's a place. It's spelled Yakana, but pronounced Yakani. I think the original pronunciation was Yakana, but got changed over the years. Me and my son were driving there in the evening. Sun had just set. Look off to the left. There's a field. There's not a house probably. The nearest house is probably 200 yards away. There are 4 lights that look about the size of basketballs. They're sitting in this field in a straight line about 50 yards apart, in a straight line going from south to north, evenly spaced. About 3 weeks later, I was at the same time of day. There was 1 or 2 vehicles a ways in front of me. And I looking straight ahead, and from the left side of the highway, up in the air, here comes 4 large glowing red lights, like red amber. They're the size, in the sky, they look about like the size of beach balls. And they're following each other, one single file, going the same speed. And as they go over the highway, and they're about 150, 200 feet up in the air. As they come over the highway, they start to go down and then out of sight. And they went to that like same field that we saw them in 2 or 3 weeks before. There was someone called into the local police. This is somebody that lived in town or like right at the edge of the city limits, said that there was these strange red lights, red balls is what they said, red glowing balls flying through the air. Local policeman, and he was telling me about this, said he was in the area and he saw them as well. And they were, when first one would change direction, the other ones would follow right in behind it. So, I don't know if anybody else has seen anything red like that, red glowing balls, following single file. That's the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And just besides the police officer talking about, that's the only instance I've ever heard of anything like that. There's some lights. I don't know if they're white or green lights that come up out of the ground at a place called Board Camp Crystal Mine. It's like 10 miles east of Mena on Highway 8 East. You can go there and dig for crystal all day. But they've had some lights, unexplained. And I believe Josh Gates did a show on them. He was out there, got some footage, reported on that. They've had some Bigfoot activity out there as well, not as extensive as what we have here. You see some strange craft fly over. He's got an escort, like a jet in front, jet in the back, and in between you got something with 7 lights. It's either 7 crafts trying to stay close together, or it's one craft with 7 lights on it. And these lights are kind of moving. We've seen that twice in one night. I don't, some kind of top secret government thing, UFO they're escorting. I don't know. But you start talking to people around here, and you're going to hear all kinds of stories. A lot of people, they won't say a word. They don't want people to think they're crazy, and I completely understand.
Yeah. Now, how about ghosts on your property?
I'd have to say no. I haven't seen anything that that I would have to say is a ghost or demonic.
Mm. Okay.
Now, we did have one time when I first moved back, I bought a single-wide mobile home, with 5 of us in my grandma's house, my grandma, my dad, me and my 2 kids. I'm like, we don't have enough room. I'm going to go nuts. And so bought a used mobile home and hated that thing. I hated it. I finally wound up selling it, but while we were in there, my son was seeing something that he said was white, short-haired, dark eyes. He said it looked like a zombie. And he was quite shaken up quite a bit. But before bed, I would always pray for him, lay hands on him, pray for him, spirit of protection, hedge of protection and a sphere of protection. Just a hedge and a sphere, and in Jesus' name. But then one night after I went in and prayed for him, he wanted a glass of water. I went to the bathroom. When I came out of the bathroom, there was a male figure. The light was off, but there was a light in the kitchen behind him, so I could easily see this silhouette. He was like leaning, as to look to where I went. I went back to my son's room. I didn't tell him about it. I prayed for him again, and then I came in there, and nothing's there. Later on, I sold it to some friends, and their daughter, their oldest daughter, had the same room that Gregory had. They had a door shutting and closing by itself, growling. Her daughter, they were telling me, they're at their dining table what she was seeing. So she's telling me this. I'm like, this is what Gregory's seeing. Oh, my gosh. I'm like, Gregory, I go, come here. I want you to tell them what that thing that was in your room standing over you at night, what it looked like. And he proceeded to tell them, and their mouths fell over. Or their mouths dropped open. Let me go. I'm talking a little too much here, okay, Dustin and Lauren? You've got to bear with me. I'm getting a little tongue twisted.
Oh, you're fine.
That's okay.
So whatever it was attached to the house. Now, later on, a couple months later, I saw the gentleman that I bought that mobile home from. And I asked him, hey, did anything ever, ghostly or demonic ever happen at that house? He just kind of turned his head and let out a sigh. I'm like, I take that as yes. He said that his ex-wife got into the occult and was doing seances and stuff inside that home. So, okay.
Yeah, that's not okay. That's not cool.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you do that.
Shelly,
you invite all kinds of stuff. Yes.
Yeah, yes, you do. Absolutely. And it's hard to get rid of some of that stuff once it's been invited in. Okay, so last week, I believe it was last week, you and I had chatted, and you had told me that you were recently having some activity going on closer to your house, like banging on your house, Bigfoot activity. Do you want to talk about that? Do you feel comfortable talking about that?
Let's see. We had, it was about a week ago, I guess. I think it was a week ago tonight. The dog, one of her dogs was out back, and she went in, across the fence into the pasture, and she was barking at something like there's an intruder there. Thinking, okay, could be the peeping Tom across the field. That guy's kind of strange. Could be Bigfoot. So you got that going on. But anyway, so she comes back a little closer to the house, and I'm in the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and while I'm in the bathroom, I hear her just outside, the other side of the wall, just outside from me, and she's barking, and she's kind of growling like she's scared, but mad at the same time. And so it's come a lot closer, and since she's backed all the way to the house. And So I'm like, well, I'm going to go out and see what it is. And by the time I had made it out of the bathroom and got my shoes on and went outside, it had went around the end of the house, across the road, and it up through the parking lot for the zip line, which is all gravel. So I go out the door, and the old red bone or hound, he's about 12 years old, he goes out as well. He's putting his nose in every track, and its stance is about 2 feet apart. Now, I never saw it, but he's, tracking it in the gravel, and his nose will go about, you can see as he's going to the left footprint, and then moves up to the right footprint, left footprint, and each step that it was taken, one stride was about 5.5 to 6 feet long. That's how long its stride was, and that's just massive. And then she chased out. It went on up to the through the parking lot, up the hill, and then over onto the south property south of here. I went out the next day and looked for some tracks. There were some partials there, but there's so much grass you can't really make out what it is. But you can tell something went through there.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Well, what's crazy is when you wake up and you see something at your window. Now, that happened back in October before Dustin and Shane and everybody came up here for the weekend. I had fallen asleep on the couch, and there was lightning probably about an hour and a half north of here, like Fort Smith area. There's some lightning in the distance. Both Yorkies are here. They're on the back of the couch, and they're barking. They see something. And so I kind of open my eyes, and I'm like, what? I see like an arm going, across the outside of the window, like horizontally. I'm like, am I, like that's crazy. So as I reach my phone and kind of light it up to look for my glasses so I can find those, and by the time I get my glasses on, and nothing's there. And I guess probably saw my light from my phone and then got away from the window. That was crazy. But that's not the first time that I've seen something at the window. I was sitting here one night, something walked. Something that was at least 7 feet tall walked in front of the window. I could see like a little bit of white, which I think was like maybe some eyes and teeth as it went by.
Mm-hmm. And how tall are your windows? How far off the ground are they?
Maybe not quite 5 feet. And so that was about, the white was about 2 feet from the bottom of the window.
Okay.
So you're looking at 4.5, 5.5 feet. So whatever it was probably about 7 feet tall.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like you need to strap some GoPros to your dogs and send them out in the woods.
Yeah, and I really thought about that. My luck, the GoPros would not come back.
Especially what was the real little dog's name? What was his name?
The Yorkie?
Yeah.
Dandy.
Yeah, he was the coolest little dog because he got out there. Oh, she got out there and the grass was taller than her, and she was still getting out there chasing the cows down, and she was running with the big dogs. But after a while, you could tell she was getting tired, and then we all ended up getting in the truck, and she couldn't keep up with the bigger dogs. So Kendall grabbed her, and he got in the back of the truck, and we actually have a picture that Shane took through the back window of my truck, and Kendall's just sitting on the tire in the back of my truck just holding her, and he just looks like he's the happiest he's ever been, just back there holding that puppy.
I got a picture too. Yeah, that was adorable. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever let Kendall forget about that.
Nope. I'm surprised Kendall didn't take her.
So have you ever been, it sounds like you're pretty used to it, Have you ever been too scared to stay there, or has there been a moment when you've been considered leaving, or that you've been too scared to stay?
No.
Okay.
I'm used to it. I've heard, like when it charged through the woods, when I was in my car and it came charging through the woods and out into the open. That's the most frightened I've ever been. And even after that, going out into the woods by myself, with it's metal detecting it and stuff. My mom's always like, "Oh, be careful. I don't want you going out there." I'm like, well, it's never attacked me when I'm out there. I've heard people talking about they charge at you just to kind of bluff you, scare you, but I've never heard of anybody being actually physically attacked. I don't know if you guys heard of that.
There have been some stories, but it's nobody I knew personally, so
right.
Gotta kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I know my dad sold. Excuse me, my dad sold some timber off the North 40. I wasn't too keen on that. Neither was Bigfoot, because he was throwing pebbles at my dad's house and at my house. I've had it, and you just hear like little pebbles just hitting, just like every minute or so. Didn't care for that, and that was before the flood. That was actually probably a couple weeks before that massive flood when my son saw it. So, because that was part of his hiding spot. It was very dense woods, and I hated to see it go. But there was a lot of trees that were out there that were dying, so that it needed to be cleared out. But it's growing up now. It's getting some more trees. There's some large sycamores out there. There's a few oaks. So it's growing up nicely. It's really thick with a lot of privet, and you could hide 50 Bigfoot out there, and they're having a party right now. Now I got to tell you about the big pile of poop. There was a huge pile of poop in my backyard. I was growing these what's called bushel basket gourds. Now this was, I believe, in 2011. I had squash bugs. Now nothing will kill squash bugs. Now if you catch them when they're little, insecticide will kill them. But once they get like half grown to adult, nothing's going to kill them. You're going to have to go actually squash them, either step on them or squash them with your hands, or soapy water. Soapy water will kill them. So I went outside with the water hose, and with those little things you attach to the end of the water hose, you put fertilizer in it or whatever. I put all laundry detergent in this thing. I was seriously going to kill me some squash bugs. While I was out there, I looked down, and there was this massive amount of crap. It was enough to fill like a gallon. Those little plastic ice cream buckets. They're like a gallon or whatever they hold. It was enough for one of those. And I'm like, that looks like human poo. This is not a cow. I don't know any dog that, nothing does that except human. But there was just so much of it. And so I actually reached down, touched it, got a little of my finger.
Oh.
I figured I've got this all. I can wash it off. I smelled of it. It smelled like human poop. And then I washed it off, and then I washed it away. And I should have got I should have saved it. I don't know, maybe somebody get some DNA off of it.
If anyone ever questions your dedication to your research, I will tell them this story.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Man. I'm going to continue to be traumatized by that for the rest of the night.
Well, okay. Now, here was one time when I was kind of really freaked out doing some research. I took a bunch of stuff up into the woods on this hill where Bigfoot had drugged the deer. Now, this was back in, like, August of 2018, about the same time when the zip line was being put in. And I think it was after the tree knocks. I took like a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, some fruit bars, raisins, and about 4 or 5 different food items. And I took some Mardi Gras beads. I hung 4 different Mardi Gras beads up into the trees around where this food was. And that was, probably like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. I had went to town. Maybe I was at my mom's, but I came home. It was about midnight. Well, instead of going straight on down the driveway to the house, I just turned and went across the cattle guard. And I stopped. And, of course, all the dogs, they see me, and they come out there like, hey, you're home. What are you doing out here? And including that little bloodhound, the one that was all whiny when Bigfoot broke up their deer race. And so I started up there. No single dog would come up there, not the Shih Tzu, not the Pit Mix, the bloodhound, and there's about 2 or 3 more dogs. They wouldn't come up there with me. And then they're like all, whiny, especially Lily. She's whiny. And so I'm like, okay, well, just stay here then. And that was probably one of the most scared I'd been in, God, I don't know how long. But all I had was the flashlight on my phone. And I went up there, and, of course, everything is still there. But it's nearby, and they don't want to come up there. All the food's there. The Mardi Gras beads are there. And the Mardi Gras beads, actually, nothing touched them until back in October. They were there around the first part of October. But, Dustin, you remember when I was showing y'all the turtle rock?
Yeah.
And that's when the beads were gone. One was kind of draped over another limb, and 2 more were gone. And another one had been broken, and there was like 2 small pieces of that, but the rest of that was gone. So something had messed with it within that month, finally, but they'd been hanging there. Then the food, I think it was gone within in about the next day. I believe all that food was gone.
That's crazy. That's crazy. Well, Shelly, we are out of time. You have been a phenomenal guest. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences and all of that. Thank you so much.
Well, hey, you are very welcome, and I look forward to seeing both of you down in Fouke next month. That's going to be fun.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm excited to get to research with you again. So on that note, we are having our Fouke camp out at the end of February, last weekend of February. It will be at Alex Smith Park, Friday through Sunday, and we're going to have some vendors there, have some great guests joining us. We're going to have movie night, a little research expedition. It's free. We just ask that you donate, make a donation if you can to Alex Smith Park, and there's also going to be a raffle for items for the proceeds will also go to Alex Smith Park. We're trying to make it a more hospitable park for future Bigfooters and campers. So thank you for bringing that up so I could do a shameless plug.
All right.
And again, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great show, and we will see you next month.
All right. Sounds good. It's been my pleasure. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Shelly, and I cannot wait to come back down there.
Yeah. I want to come this time.
Anytime. Yes, please do. Yeah, we'll have come up here for the festival. We're going to have a lot of fun. But I will see y'all in Fouke next month, and I'm excited. My son is excited. So we're really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, we're going to call it a night. And so no show this Wednesday, everybody. This is our show for the week, and we will see y'all all next week. Good night, everybody.
Bye.
All right, good night.
See ya.